Hello and welcome to the International Pentagon Challenge. My name is Kyanite and together we'll be embarking on a very special Football Manager journey where we'll aim to try and win every major international competition in all 5 continents, forcing our hand to play with hundreds of different types of players and most importantly hopefully create loads of awesome different types of tactics along the way. Once that's complete, only then are we allowed to set our sights on the biggest of all goals, the FIFA World Cup. How many nations will we have to manage until we work our way to the top? How many dodgy names will we have to pronounce along the way? So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hopefully we're going to have a lot of fun along the way. Alright, hello everyone and welcome to episode 91 of the International Pentagon Challenge. And you might remember in the last episode, South Korea, who are hosting the World Cup, beat Italy 1-0. Well, believe it or not, it gets worse for the Italians. I don't know what to say really, other than mamma mia, because they not only, where are they? They not only lost to Mali, but they conceded 5 goals to Mali, which means that the Italians are already out of the World Cup. So, on a positive note, Manuel Locatelli's probably going to get the sack. On an even more positive note, if we do poorly as the manager of Spain, we might stand a chance of then becoming the manager of the Italians, which would be a fun ride. But I don't even know why I'm thinking about that. So we go back to an old team, Mexico El Tri, a team that I think I spent the most time with in terms of my managerial career. I think I spent just a few more months at Mexico than I did with Egypt. So a nation that are very close to my heart, and deep down I am kind of rooting for them to do well in the World Cup in Russia in real life because it's their style of football as well. You know, I've said it numerous times in this series and other series that I've done that I love counter-attacking football, and the way Mexico play is it definitely hits the spot in terms of my football fetishes, if you can have a football fetish. But anyways, forget my football fetishes. Let's hopefully get another 3 points against Mexico and guarantee qualification into the last 16. Okay, here we go then. So Mexico, very, very unlike the tactical approach we played as the Mexico manager. Flat back 4 from them. Gonzalez is now their main right winger. Rincon and Colin, who we will remember incredibly well, are both playing as the centre midfielders. Suarez is on the left. Angel Arenas up front. Whilst with us, we've actually opted to go with the 4-3-3 approach, simply because most of Mexico's emphasis is going to be coming from the wingers. When we first took over, our strength was in the central areas, but they have been developing some good wingers. Gonzalez is obviously a player that scored goals for us, but I used to play him up front, I believe, or as kind of a extra winger when we really needed to chase a goal rather than an out-and-out winger, because we didn't play with out-and-out wingers. So for us, unfortunately, left back, whose name I can't quite remember right now, the guy with African heritage, he came off injured in the last game, and he still is injured. He's probably going to be out between 1 to 6 days, so he might make a late reinsurgence back into this World Cup, so La Cueva comes back into the side. In this kind of system, I'm not really too bothered due to his lack of pace right now, because Akeche and Julian will come back to help. Unfortunately, it does mean that Alvarez, who got 4 assists in the last game, drops to the bench because he can't really play in a position tactically at the moment, but he's kind of a wild card off the bench and he's on 89%, so it's probably a blessing in disguise as we look to try and keep him fresh, because he is going to be an important player for us later on in the tournament. And later on in the tournament as well, like we saw ourselves do in the Nations Cup, where we wanted to play 4-3-3. Our 2 strikers became wingers, so that'll be a great opportunity where Alvarez can shine later on in the tournament if we're not playing the 3-4-3. So without further ado, let's hopefully beat the Mexicans. Okie doke, here we go then. This stadium certainly looks a little bit bigger from the last stadium we were in, that could apparently hold 75,000 people. So here we go. So Mexico, quite direct, looking to get the ball wide. Both Rincon and Colin have been given specific opposition instructions because they were 2 of my main talisman, and I know the damage that they can do, so it is very, very, very important for us that we can keep them both quiet. And this is a very quick starting Mexico side. So We are looking to play with a standard mentality, at least for the first 15-20 minutes, looking to hog the ball quite a lot, which we are doing, as we can see, with 75% average possession. And our anchorman in Osoro, who we saw play as our third centre-back in the last game, is also trying to man mark and stay very tight to Arenas, who was obviously a player I brought out of the Mexico under-21 to kind of become a substitute attacking central midfielder for us, just a playmaker playing just behind the two strikers. But 8 minutes in, we've not really looked too badly. There's the man marking coming into play again. It's good because he has the ability, Osoro, to do that, but he can also play in defensive midfield, and he just takes the pressure off a little bit from one of the two centre-backs that would usually have to deal with that kind of thing, because coming up against Mexico, playing with two quite pacey centre-forwards, it can be very easy to end up having the two centre-backs isolated against two centre-forwards. So far so good. We've not played poorly, but 25 minutes gone, I think we start, cranking it up a little bit. So we will up the tempo a little bit, go to an attacking mentality. Tell the lads to be a little bit more expressive and see where that really takes us. Again, when you play like a 4-4-2, and this is just a personal tip that I always find works well against formations that are quite one-dimensional, and by that I mean like 4-2-3-1s can be played in several different ways and can be defined in terms of how the 4-2-3-1 or generically a 4-5-1-esque formation in terms of the player roles. Whilst with a 4-4-2, unless you're up against Manuel Pellegrini kind of playing with wide playmakers in the wide areas, chances are, especially up against the AI, you're going to come up against just very one-dimensional winger play. What on earth is that for a shot, Julian? What on earth is that for a shot? Winger play. So it works well to utilise your opposition instructions and try and basically show the wingers on their weaker feet. Sometimes you end up with one team that will play with a winger on one side and an inverted winger on another side, and you can just simply do a simple tweak in the drop-down box of your opposition instructions to show each player on their weaker foot, and I find that it does make a difference defensively in terms of how and what your players look to do, which I think contributes as to why Mexico really for 45 minutes haven't even had a single shot on goal. I mean, by this point, Saudi Arabia, I think, had scored in us. But the problem is we've only had one shot on target ourselves, which isn't really good enough. So we need to look at how we could potentially change this around. I'm not really prepared to kind of change to the 3-4-3, given their emphasis on wingers, mainly because they've already lost a game, Mexico, against Scotland. And I feel like we could beat Scotland, which would ensure we finish top of the group anyway. So if it stays like this, 0-0, and we have to bring on fresh legs and deal with a 0-0 against Mexico, I wouldn't really mind too much, because I still think we're in a position where we can go on to finish top of the group. But obviously a win here would guarantee qualification, so so I think we're going to take the lad with the yellow card off. Ibok can come on. He does play centre back at times. Akeche can drop down to be a false 9, get him involved a little bit deeper as well. I think we could also see Sebastian come on. I'm not sure if you guys know Sebastian, actually. You probably will do by the end of this episode if things currently stay the way they are. He plays for West Brom, I believe, unless he's got a transfer that I don't know about. He's quite old. He's like 32, 33. But his physicals still aren't too bad, and he's been scoring goals in the Premier League for West Brom, and scouts have constantly been telling me to get him involved. And that's exactly what I have been doing. And I think he grabbed one goal for us in the build-up to kind of this tournament, but we know the build-up to this tournament for us was kind of testing different things out on a bit of a shambles. But he kind of offers a different type of threat. He's a very kind of Diego Costa-esque style player. Here he is, 192 centimetres strong, will cause problems in the box. So on that note, I think I'll move Manzanek out to the right-hand side because Julian is tired and will need a rest to grab us a few goals against the Scottish. And to take advantage of Sebastian, we'll change our crosses from mixed. We've had a lot of possession so far this game. So, let's try and bite off a little bit more by going a little bit more direct and seeing where that takes us. Hopefully it gives us a little bit more of an extra dimension up front. Mexico are now going down to 10 men, hopefully. There we go. And let's see what they're up to do now. They brought on a central player, it seems. Are they playing with no winger? Miguel scores from another set piece. scored 2, of course, against Saudi Arabia, and they've actually opted to play with the 4-3-2, which makes sense for them because they do play with that kind of flat 4 in midfield, but I feel like now we can try and isolate the 2 wide players. So now in its current state, I want to try and grab that goal. So Leicester can start venturing forward, which is fine. We're a man up, so Ibar doesn't have to be as negative. And rather than exploit the middle, we can look to exploit the right flank as well. And I think we can afford also to be a little bit more direct. Now, I don't want to up our defensive line simply because they are still playing with 2 up front, but I feel like we can afford to be a little bit more direct. We'll play a little bit wider as well. Hopefully that extra man does mean that Mexico are more susceptible to making changes and to making mistakes, and going a bit more direct means we're less susceptible to making mistakes with the direct passing because Miguel's taking a free kick because there's less players, less opposition players on the pitch, so we'll hopefully it'll be a little bit easier for us to pick out the passes that we need. In its current state, I'll be very, very disappointed if we don't manage to get the win. We've been pushing forwards. Sebastian finds Leicester, who shoots. Fortunately, though, goes wide of the target. And we are starting to see glimpses of what I was kind of mentioning in the last episode, where we're just not clinical enough in the final third. We get a lot of opportunities, but they often come to waste, or it's almost like decisions made by certain players just aren't really on point. I think the right back is now, by me, going to be told to venture forward a little bit more because that was a good position for him to really overlap. We can also make one more substitution, and I am going to give Raul some game time because he does need to get match fit. Like, Raul's a good player for us. He's an important player for us, especially in terms of his technical ability coming off the bench. I just want to change him to an advanced playmaker, which is something I forgot to do, and the game's decided it's a very, very good idea to hang up on me. We're starting to get yellow cards here. I don't really want yellow cards because it means that players will get suspended. And now we're really at a point where we're going to keep on playing our own game. We've started pushing more men forwards. We'll go a little bit more direct maybe with 10 minutes to go. But at the moment we just have to keep faith in the system and that Sebastian can finish chances like that. And that's why Sebastian is a crucial player to come off the bench for us. I was in 2 minds as to whether to bring him to the World Cup or not, because to be fair, I wasn't really using him much, in our friendlies and stuff, but I did give him a chance and he scored, and he, like I said, has that extra bit of physicalness about him that some of our other creative strikers, who are really more kind of, I won't say playmakers, but winger / playmaker type players who can also play up front. Sebastian is an out-and-out traditional striker. So even if you think about our other kind of traditional striker on paper, Manzanek, he's actually also a winger by trade, and he sometimes does play out wide for Real Madrid, which is his club. So it just felt like it was good to have a player like Sebastian. It's actually a complete coincidence that Sebastian got his chance in the team. It was because Miguel Soler, 36-year-old, I kind of like call him Puyol, because he's that kind of player where like he's basically a Spanish legend. Though, what a save. But the fact that we almost conceded there was abysmal. Let's drop these fullbacks down. But yeah, he's kind of like that old guy. He's been a captain for a very long time, loved by the fans and whatnot. And yeah, he was actually going to be in the squad, but he got injured in a friendly just before coming to the World Cup. And while he's probably okay now, I felt to myself, he's 36 years old. Look, we need to build for the future. It's what I always do. Let's give this Sebastian lad a go. He's 32. He's still very physical. He's probably got another 2 or 3 years in him. And I was also wary of the fact that we could at one point end up playing with a 4-4-2, and the 4-4-2 system that I've got stored away for a rainy day does require a physical target man up front. It's a more direct approach, and that's why I opted going with him. It's paid off. Granted, not in the 4-4-2, but he got his chance and he took it. And you never know, he might very well end up starting the next game against Scotland. So Arenas passes to Arenas. So it seems like, oh, for God's sake, Villanova. I mean, I'm not quite sure if that was a good save or we were fortunate for it to hit the back of the post. We may have taken the lead, but the Mexicans have had a chance or two, I'll tell you that. We've been lucky to hold on here. I will probably tell the boys I'm not too happy with the performance. And this is what I mean by inconsistency, right? I know the Mexicans are a lot better than the Saudi Arabians, and a lot of people might be under some kind of illusion that Saudi Arabia are a poor footballing side because obviously they conceded 5 to Russia. But then again, Egypt had a very solid game against Uruguay, and got beat by Saudi Arabia. So it's important to bear in mind here that yes, Mexico are a lot better than Saudi Arabia, but to put 6 goals past them was impressive. It's not an easy feat to do. So in relation to this just 1-0 win against Mexico, I think it's a little bit underwhelming given the fact that they were playing with 10 men for a lot of the game. So there we go. The important thing is we've guaranteed qualification. We can basically rest players now. Tell the lads I wasn't happy. They look fired up. That's what we wanted. And it'll probably be 3-4-3 again against Scotland unless they play some kind of tactical approach where I feel like a 4-3-3 would be a better choice. So that is going to be it for this episode. We're slowly but surely getting there in this 2038 World Cup. Where do you think we will finish? Naturally, we're the Spaniards, so you probably expect us to reach at least the quarterfinals, but as we know, it's easier said than done. So if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and as always, thanks for watching.